Hello, Trekkies and Trekkers. Well, it's another day of Star Trek Timber, so let's start things off with a matter of perspective. With a routine planetary survey ahead, the Federation Starship Enterprise drops Commander Riker and Chief Engineer LaForge at the Botanica 4 Research Space Station orbiting Tanuga 4 to check on the progress of the work of Dr. Nell Apgar, a Tanugan who has been working on Krieger waves, a new promised energy source for the Federation. When the Enterprise returns, Picard is told that Riker stayed behind to have a private meeting with Apgar, and moments after Riker transports back to the ship, the station explodes, killing Apgar and almost killing Riker due to the explosion disrupting the transporter process. Tanugan investigator Craig comes aboard to accuse Riker of murder. Under Tanugan law, Riker is guilty until proven innocent, and Craig demands Riker's extradition. Captain Picard requests that they hold a hearing aboard the Enterprise to determine Riker's guilt. This involves the use of holodeck, recreating the events on the station from data logs and testimony from Riker, Dr. Apgar's wife, Manua, and his research assistant, Tana. In the holodeck recreation, Craig demonstrates a directed beam from Riker's location prior to transport struck the Krieger wave converter, destroying it and the station. But it's serious that Riker fired a phaser just before beaming out. Riker presents his case first, with a simulation showing Apgar highly agitated with the Federation presence before he's ready for them, and Manua openly flirting with Riker. Manua then makes aggressive passes at Riker in the guest quarters when Apgar walks in on them, attempts to attack Riker, but Riker subdues him. Apgar leaves with Manua, giving Riker a veiled threat. Riker's simulation concludes with his final confrontation with Apgar, where Apgar tells Riker that he will lodge a formal complaint about Riker's behavior and accuses Riker of potentially damaging the project with baseless information in Riker's progress report. In Manua's version of the events, she is a doting wife, with her husband promising rich rewards coming from the project. From her point of view, Riker is the one making the advances, and when they are alone in the guest quarters, Riker threatens to rape her when her husband storms in to defend her, but Riker overpowers him and threatens to have the project shut down. During a recess, Riker asserts to Counselor Troi that he never seduced Manua, and Troi believes him. But she tells him that Manua believed the events happened as described, and that it is the truth as each of you remembers it. Tana's testimony is her version of events from Apgar's point of view as he told her. Picard tries to have the testimony dismissed as hearsay. However, Tanugan law allows such testimony, so they proceed. In her simulation, when Apgar was in a Riker Manua, Apgar is the one to successfully subdue Riker, leaving Riker threatening to kill Apgar. Based on the testimonies presented, Picard is not sure Riker's case is strong enough to avoid extradition. Meanwhile, the crew of the Enterprise find highly focused pulses of an unknown intense radiation striking parts of the ship, cutting holes through the bulkheads. LaForge fears what would happen if this should occur inside the warp reactor. The initial assessment is that only commonality is the timing of these events, which upon further examination they soon trace to be precisely in time with the A-wave generator on the surface, which had remained operating after the station's destruction. Picard comes to realize the truth and prepares a new simulation on the holodeck. With Craig, Manua, Tanya, and Riker all present, Picard demonstrates through a combination of the testimonies that Apgar was more interested in the potential financial success of completing the Krieger wave converter. He will not get this through the Federation. Picard postulates that he in fact was trying to weaponize the project to make money, thus explaining his hostility towards Riker's presence. Further, Picard suggests that Apgar has successfully built the converter. The holodeck simulation of it, also being fully functional, has been focusing the energy from the generator on the planet, resulting in the damaging radiation experienced on the ship, which LaForge identified as Krieger waves. Picard completes his explanation by running the holodeck simulation at the moment of Riker's transport, synchronized with the planetary generator. The holodeck simulation shows that Apgar had aimed the Krieger wave generator at Riker, but when the energy beam struck him, the beam bounced off the transporter field and hit the converter, destroying it and the station. Greg agrees with the conclusion that Apgar accidentally killed himself, and Riker is exonerated. Phew, that was a bit of a close one. Anyway, let's look at a little bit of analysis and impact regarding this episode and other things. In the book Star Trek Visions, the legal aspects of this episode are analyzed. 2 points made about the legal process is that the character Riker would have been protected by diplomatic immunity if it followed modern international law. Another point is that the Federation could have protested extradition on the grounds due process is a fundamental right, which would be violated. In the episode, Riker's commanding officer Picard negotiates an extradition hearing and conducts an investigation into the charges. A Matter of Perspective and The Measure of a Man are part of the University of Miami School of Law library as law-related films. In a 2014 re-review of the episode by James Sunt, provide the realization that the opening scene of A Matter of Perspective, where the character Data analyzes paintings, was a preview of the episode's theme. It highlights from the concepts of the episode that people can interpret the same event in different ways. The space station design model is shown in the show was from Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan and Star Trek: The Motion Picture. In this era, the original effects were physical models, not CGI. Art styles and painters mentioned by Data at the start of the show, geometric constructivism, surrealism, Dadaism, Fauvism, Cubism, Picasso, and Leger. He also mentions a fictional Proto-Vulcan influence, but taking the other mentions at face values, are mostly 20th century art styles or painters. Interesting. Guest star Juliana Donald, who played the character Tana, the Apgar assistant, later went on to act in the Star Trek franchise in the Deep Space Nine episode Prophet Motive and the video game Star Trek Borg. In those cases, she did not reprise the role of Tanya, however. Donald said in an interview the most difficult part of playing the role of Tanya in A Matter of Perspective was how stoic the character was, which meant relating the character's internal emotions more subtly. To be selected for the role of Tanya, she had to audition many times. The audition group for cast included the producer, director, and writers. A Matter of Perspective was directed by Clifford John Bull, who also directed 25 other Star Trek The Next Generation episodes. David Krieger was the science advisor of this episode, and there was a plot element to technology named after him. Director of photography, aka cinematographer, was Marvin Rush, who would come on starting with Season 3 of Star Trek The Next Generation, and would serve in that role up to Season 5 of TNG. Previously a sitcom he had worked on won a Peabody Award in the 1980s, and he went to work on Star Trek up to 2005, including directing one episode of TNG, and he also worked on other shows in the Star Trek franchise in various capacities. And let's see, the episode's theme was derived from the 1950 Japanese film Rashomon. This episode is similar to the original series episodes Court Martial and Wolf in the Fold. This episode also has some similarities to Star Trek Voyager episode Ex Post Facto. That's kind of interesting. So I want to say this is a pretty interesting episode, I guess you could say, and the whole different perspectives things I thought was kind of nice. So overall, I give A Matter of Perspective 4 warp cores out of 5. Well, join me soon as we take a look at Yesterday's Enterprise. Ooh, that should be a fun one. So, until then, live long and prosper, everybody.